Hi, everyone. I miss you a lot, by the way. Just wish I could tell you to your face and give you a hug. This is chapter 10. Chapter 10 is called Dim Wood Forest. Here we go. Poppy searched desperately for a place to hide. Glitter Creek ran behind. Before her stood Dimwood Forest. There was little choice. She plunged along the shadowy tree trunks and began running wildly, her only desire to put as much distance between herself and Mr. Oakex's tree as possible. It did not take long before an exhausted Poppy had to stop. Her sides ached. She was hot and she was cold all at once. Her heart felt as though it would break through her ribs. Gasping for breath, she crept beneath a leaf, then peered about to see where she had come. It was as if the sun had been stolen. Only thin ribbons of light seeped out through the green and milky air. Air syrupy with the scent of pine, huckleberry, and juniper. Those are trees. Those are names of trees. From the rolling emerald carpeted earth, fingers of lacy ferns curled up, above which the massive fir and pine trees stood, pillar-like, to support an invisible sky. Friends, I love that figurative language. Hovering, I'll show you the picture in a second, over everything was a silence as deep as the trees were tall. Again, figurative language, love it. What kind of language was that? As deep as the trees were tall. Poppy gazed at it all in awe. She was not sure what she'd thought Dimwood Forest would look like. She knew only that she'd never imagined it to be so vast, so dense, and so dark. The sight made her feel immensely isolated and small. Feeling small made her a part of all that she saw. Being part of it made her feel immense. This was all so terribly confusing. Here's the picture. The silence was broken by the sound of sharp tapping. Poppy ducked, but nothing happened. From another direction came a yelp, and then a screech. Poppy shivered. Closer still was a smothery scurry of something slithery and unseen. A tree groaned. A branch snapped. There was the passing scamper of little feet. Poppy's heart raced just as fast. She could only guess what animals were making such sounds. Automatically, she thought of the porcupines, recalling vividly the frightening picture that her father had shown the family. Had not Mr. Oakex given a special warning about a particularly bloodthirsty porcupine that he'd seen recently in the forest? He had. Poppy grew even more tense. She had to find a place to regain her composure and to get calm again. Anxiously, she gazed about for a safe place to rest. What she found was a massive boulder. Its top half was matted with dark moss, and its lower part embedded into the earth. But beneath it was a hollow. Hold on. Poppy bounded over to the rock. Close up, the hollow actually proved to be more like a cave, utterly dark at the deep end. What was there? She edged forward, sniffing the air. She froze. A distinct animal smell alarmed all of her senses. Unable to identify what it might be, she listened intently, ears flicking this way and that. Seeing and hearing nothing, she crept slowly forward until she was completely inside the cave. Was anything there? Only when she was quite certain that nothing was, she began to clean herself and to become calm. Mr. Oakex, from a hiding place at the far side of Dimwood Forest, watched that barn at New House intently. His nervous talons clenched and unclenched the branch upon where he was perched. At first he tried to deny the fear that he felt inside of him. It was growing too fast. It could not be denied. That he, Oakex, the great horned owl, should feel fear made him livid. It was for others to be fearful, not him. This is unfair, he hissed. Unnatural. Suddenly, Hearing his own outburst, he looked about very quickly in alarm, anxious that some other creature might see him or hear him. No matter what, his fearlessness must never, ever be known. He spread his wings and glided silently away from Newhouse. In a temper, he recalled the mouse that he had seen in Glitter Creek. Perhaps maybe the body of the mouse had been tossed up onto the bank. He was upset enough to eat anything, even if it were already dead. When he reached the creek, he began to fly upstream, moving low over the water. Poppy paused in her fur cleaning now and again gazed out to the forest. It should have not been called Dimwood, she told herself, but Darkwood. She kept asking herself how she ever thought that she could find her way through such a fearsome place. The likelihood of her survival was growing slimmer by the moment. And though at the moment she felt relatively safe, she was worried that she had not gotten far enough away from Mr. Oaxax's watchful tree. But which way should she go? She had no idea where she was. She was lost, and she knew it. She had recalled the vow that she made on Bannock Hill, never again to leave home. She considered going back. She wanted to desperately, but then she thought about what would happen if she did return with nothing to report to Lungwort about Mr. Oaxax. Oh, life would be so miserable. Poppy sighed. It was hard to be courageous. So hard to be a coward. Going forward or back seemed equally awful. So much easier to just do nothing. But if she did nothing, she would surely perish. What was she to do? Trying to stay calm, she reminded herself that by pressing on, she at least had a chance to make a difference for her family. Now, if she only knew which direction would lead her to Newhouse. Mr. Oaxax concluded the mouse that he had seen in the water was gone, washed away. At least there was no evidence of its existence, dead or alive. In any case, he was still so upset by what he had seen at Newhouse that he found it hard to concentrate on searching. His head ached. All he could think about was getting some sleep. He would go home. He flew deep into Dimwood Forest, moving in a northerly direction. Poppy peered nervously out from under the boulder. If this is midday, she said to herself, I'd hate to be in the forest at night. She considered staying. And by the way, why did she mean that? I'm going to repeat it. She said, if this is midday, I'd hate to be in the forest at night. What are the things, the most vivid thing that she's been observing so far about the forest? She said, this shouldn't be called Dimwood Forest. This should be called, what? Darkwood Forest, meaning it's already dark. So if this is midday, and we know what midday is, then she'd hate to be here at night. Probably super dark. She considered staying and sleeping for a while, but the distinct smell of the other animal made her too nervous. It certainly seemed not to be about, but what if it came back while she fell asleep? Too risky. If she wanted to sleep, and she did, she'd better find a better place to hide. Checking in all directions and paying particular attention to the angle of the slanting rays of sunlight, and knowing that moss grew on the north side of trees, Poppy made up her mind that she would make a rough determination as to which way the east direction was, the direction from which she had come. As she recalled the lay of the land, Newhouse was to the north. She would go north then, hoping for the best. Mr. Oaxax then came to rest on the gray, lifeless tree, a snag that was his nest. With its top broken off, the snag rose twice as high as a blackberry bush from the ground. A high hole served as the entrance to its hollowness. For a while, the owl sat at the edge of his nest and stared moodily before him, thinking only about what he had seen at Newhouse. Just to think about it made him tense. He felt like he was in grave danger. The question was, what kind of danger? Was he about to lose his food? Would he have to fight? If he did, he knew he might be defeated. If he was defeated, would he have to move to another territory? Let me show you the picture. This is Mr. Okax in his tree, where his nest is. And so this is deep in the forest, away from the tree where he perched, where Lungwort went to go meet him. All right. Was there anything that he could do about the situation? It was all so painful to contemplate. Fretful, the owl scanned the neighborhood, paying special attention to a very large hollow log on the ground not far from the snag. Its ancient thick bark was rust-colored and encrusted with yellow fungus that looked like stubby angel wings. A clump of pale mushrooms grew from the rotting soil around it. Just the thought of the creature who had recently come to live in the log made Mr. Okax angry. It was as if the whole world were ganging up on him. Too tired to think about that now, Mr. Okax dropped down from his nest. Feeling safe there, he did not take long to fall into a restless sleep. Here's the log that he saw. Poppy made her way northward through the forest in short runs. She could only hope that she had chosen the right direction. Sometimes she paused to eat, but she felt too insecure to stop for long. Her toes ached with tension. An hour later, Poppy stopped to nibble on some pine seeds. After she ate, she noticed a huge log partially embedded into the ground, covered with yellow fungus. It seemed very old and appeared to be hollow. Poppy considered it. If the log were unoccupied, this might be the perfect place for her to rest with safety. Oh, dear friends. Then she noticed the remains of a large gray tree. Its top was gone, and it had a hole on the side. It might be safer than the log. But after studying it, Poppy decided the hole was too high for her to climb to. The log would be better. Wearily, she crept forward. The closer she came to the log, the stronger grew the scent unfamiliar to her. She sensed trouble. She was still sniffing when she heard the sound of a twig snapping behind her. She spun about and gasped. A red fox with a long bushy tail swishing back and forth was trotting in her direction, its sharp nose close to the ground. Poppy understood immediately. The fox was following her scent. Turning back, Poppy took a flying leap that landed her right at the log's open end. The fox, hearing and then seeing her, barked sharply and closed in, its lips drawn back from its sharp teeth. Poppy stood trembling before the log. Every instinct in her body warned her not to enter it. When she looked back, however, the fox was almost upon her. There was no time to waste. She dived into the log. The fox stuck its nose in after her, its barking booming about on Poppy like a cannon. Trying to get away, she moved deeper into the musky dark. Suddenly she stopped. At the far end of the log, she heard the distinct sound of heavy breathing. It was exactly what she had feared. Another creature was already in the log. Hastily, she turned toward the log opening. She never reached it. The fox's lolling red tongue and sharp white teeth barricaded the way. Poppy stared back into the log's darkness. The breathing and rattling were drawing nearer. She was trapped. And that's the end of the chapter. Friends, we are halfway through our book. So there are 20 chapters, and we are about to start chapter 11 next.